I was actually really into metal there for a number of years, mostly heavy metal and melodic death metal. Never really got into black metal. And well, that's basically what this movie is about. The early days of the Norwegian black metal scene. In the late 80s to the early 90s. And it's about this group of people that pioneered the genre. Now, I grew up hearing stories about what these guys were up to, but I never knew how much of that was actually true. But apparently a lot of it was. Not that I know how much of this is true, but I'm guessing at least the broad strokes. The stuff that actually made the news probably happened. And in case you're completely unfamiliar with the whole thing, we're basically talking about a bunch of church burnings and such. And well, you kinda get a look into what went on behind the scenes here, and how this small group of people made headlines all across the world, for everything else than their actual music. And oh yeah, they had a couple bands too. And it's all supposed to be about making the darkest music possible. But all this other stuff seems to gradually kinda take over. And what starts as publicity stunts quickly turns into something else. There's also of course this one guy who's a little bit more committed than the others, who takes it a lot more seriously and likes to escalate things. And of course eventually things get out of hand. And actually get violent too. It's a pretty brutal and graphic movie, to be honest. Not for the squeamish. And it's well acted and well directed, and I really liked some of the editing. It's actually made by Jonas Åkerlund, who's best known for making music videos. But he also just made the movie Polar, which I really liked, so that had me kinda excited. Not that this turned out to be quite as fun as Polar, but it's also a very different movie. Now the writing's not bad either, but it's really the story that carried the movie. That was the interesting part to me, and I found it to be pretty fascinating. Just about how a handful of people with some wacky ideas can do some real damage, and how things can get out of hand when people essentially egg each other on, dare each other to constantly raise the stakes and outdo each other. Now what was also kinda interesting to me were the comedic undertones. Now I'm not 100% sure if they were intended. I think they were, but they could have just been my perspective. It could just be me watching this going, oh dear Jeebus, these people are idiots. Because let's be honest, they weren't the brightest bunch around. And a lot of the stuff they did to try to come across as edgy and extreme just feels silly to me. Grown men in heavy makeup wearing all black yelling about Satan. And the funniest aspect is probably that they're essentially musicians. It's all about the music, which is one of the least edgy and extreme things you can do. Try to be scary and intimidating and super serious while playing an instrument. Now that wasn't always my thinking, but these days it all seems so silly. Trying to forward some sort of serious satanic message through music. You're in a band, you play the drums, take it easy. It comes across as posing and trying too hard. Also burning down like 800-year-old churches, these beautiful buildings, is just nuts to me now. I mean, I was never for burning churches or anything. But I guess I kinda thought it was a cool story. More as an abstract idea and a commitment to their ideals. Like wow, these guys really went for it. They went all out and committed. But these days my thinking is very different. And I'm not even remotely religious, but these are historic, beautiful buildings. And it's honestly a shame some of them got burnt down. Because I love architecture and I just think they look great. And to think of all the pain and effort that went into building them. And now they're all gone forever. For what? A silly promo stunt for a band? I don't know, the whole thing is fascinating and really kinda crazy. And yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed this movie. But it's really the story here that carries it. With a less interesting story, the other elements wouldn't have stood out. And I don't think it's a great movie, but it's good enough. It kept me entertained. So would I recommend it? I don't know. If it sounds interesting, give it a shot. Or don't. I'm not your dad. But I am trying to sell out, so consider liking, subbing, hitting that bell and supporting me on Patreon. Because I really need to start my own record label. And hey, why not drop a comment below or check out another review? I'd appreciate it. Thanks.